Photosynthesis is the process in which a plant takes in water and sunlight to create glucose and oxygen. There are two processes of photosynthesis. The first one is light-dependent reaction, and the second one is light-independent reaction. Okay, the first process of photosynthesis, light-dependent reaction, starts off by taking energy from the sun and water to create NADPH, ATP, and oxygen. Okay, so light-dependent reaction takes place in a leaf or a plant, and so what happens? It takes place more specifically in the chloroplast, and inside the stronum, there are these little blocks that are called granum, and then like the individual that makes up the granum is called a thylakoid, and then inside is also the stronum. But we're going to be focusing on the thylakoid because that is where light-dependent reaction takes place. And so the light-dependent reaction, like I said, takes place inside the thylakoid, but more specifically the thylakoid membrane, which can absorb or repel light. Okay, so the light energy from which is a photon is absorbed by the chlorophyll, and so what happens is the electron picks up the protons and then it's sent all around the chlorophyll, exciting the electrons, which produces energy. And so next is the light-independent reaction, which takes place in the stroma. Okay, so what we're going to do is add CO2 to the cycle, and our final product, which is going to be glucose. And so how we get to our final product is that CO2 is combined with ATP and NADH, which is our energy source, and that's how we get our final product, glucose.
Now going on to the herbicide for photosynthesis known as nitril. Nitril is most commonly used by farmers to kill weeds in crops such as corn and flax, mainly to refertilize the land for the next crop season. But you may wonder, what exactly does it do to the plants to block the use of photosynthesis? Well, you see, the nitril will bind the D1 protein, which then blocks the electron transport that will then create the ATP and NADH. And therefore, it will block off any energy needed for it to create glucose, or its.
The purpose of cellular respiration is to create energy in the form of ATP. It's a catabolic reaction, meaning that a larger molecule is being broken down into smaller molecules. It occurs in the cytosol and mitochondria, and the equation of cellular respiration is C6H12O6 plus 6O2 equals 6CO2 and 6H2O. There are three stages of cellular respiration: glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and oxidative phosphorylation. So the first stage of glycolysis occurs in the cytosol of the cell. In this stage, glucose is broken down into 2 pyruvates, and in the process of breaking the bond in glucose, energy and an electron is released. The energy is caught by 2 ADP, which are turned into 2 ATP. The electron is caught by 2 NAD pluses, which turn into 2 NADHs. In all, glycolysis yields 2 pyruvates, 2 ATP, and 2 NADHs. The second stage is called the Krebs cycle. It occurs in the mitochondrial matrix. The mitochondrial matrix is basically the empty space within the mitochondria, similar to the cytoplasm within the cell. The purpose of this stage is to create electron carriers to be used in oxidative phosphorylation. One pyruvate is converted into 2-acetyl-CoA, which in turn produce 6 CO2, 2 ATP, 6 NADH, and 2 FADH2. The third and final stage is called oxidative phosphorylation. This stage occurs within the mitochondrial membrane, the intermembrane space more specifically. So what happens, NADH gives off its electron, which moves through the protein complexes, and at the same time, hydrogen molecules are moving through the inner membrane into the intermembrane space. And once the electrons get to the last protein complex, they're shot off into the inner membrane, where they combine with hydrogen and oxygen to create water. Hydrogen is present in both the inner and intermembrane, And since there's a larger amount of hydrogen in the intermembrane, the hydrogen atoms want to move to where there are less atoms present, which would be in the inner membrane, and this results in the hydrogen gradient shooting through the ATP synthase. And at the same time this is happening, ADP takes in the energy from the hydrogen gradient and turns it into ATP. This stage produces the most ATP of all three stages.
Rhodonone is an odorless and colorless chemical compound used as pesticide and insecticide, but mostly acts as an inhibitor within the process of cellular respiration. What it does is it will essentially block the electron transport of NADH to the first protein complex. Though it prevents the substrate of NADH, it will not prevent the electron flow going into the second protein complex as it enters the QH2.